Welcome back to the Resource Nexus Podcast. Today we're jumping straight into the Big East, but before we break down the rankings, a quick note for anyone new here. This isn't guesswork or hot takes. Every insight you're about to hear is built on cold, hard data from my custom model, designed to measure roster strength, player impact, and overall team makeup, all backed by real, quantifiable numbers. If you want to dig into the full team breakdowns and player rankings, you can find them over at resourcenexus.com. The ratings I'll be referencing come from our model, a system I developed to translate player production across every level while adjusting for role, pace, and quality of competition. We're not just counting points per game here. We're talking possession-based value, lineup chemistry, and actual impact on wins. Let's kick it off with the three heavyweights out of the Big East. And yes, that now includes St. John's. At number 8 nationally, we've got UConn. And without Samson Johnson and more Terrace Reed, they look like more of a monster. Model has them rated at a strong 3.7. And honestly, I think this might be a better version of the team, not worse. Why? Well, for starters, Terrace Reed. He's ranked 19th nationally with a 5.2 rating, and he should finally get the minutes he deserves. With Samson gone, there's really no excuse not to unleash him. You pair that with Alex Caravan, 73rd in the country, 3.9 rating, and Silas DeMary, who's ranked 79th and also at 3.9. That gives you a hell of a top three. And doesn't it all kind of work out like that? I mean, if you got someone rated this highly based on actual performance and someone else beats him out for minutes, odds are that guy is just as good or even better. That's generally how I view it. Where this becomes really interesting is with someone like Terrace Reed. Playing him more last year would have made UConn better, in my opinion. So if you project his minutes up this season, the model reflects that value. But, and here's the catch, it's still the same coach who kept him on the bench before, so it's not a lock. Reed, by the way, is living proof that defense can improve in the right system and with the right talent around you. At Michigan, he had one of the worst defensive ratings I've seen from a legit starter, anchoring a horrible defense with a minus 12 net differential. Now, he's at a 96 on one of the best defenses in the country, and the net differential is plus 36. That's elite. I figured he'd be better under Hurley, but not this good. I'll admit it. I panned that class preseason, him and Mahaney. Nailed the Mahaney part, but I was dead wrong on Reed. He's a darling in the rankings now. Add Solomon Ball to the mix, ranked 91st with a 3.8, and Braylon Mullins, a borderline top 200 guy at 195th with a 3.2 rating. And suddenly, the depth is really starting to look solid. Malachi Smith checks in at 204th with a 3.1. And even beyond that, you've got Darius Adams, Eric Rabi, and Jalen Stewart, all floating around the 2.0 mark. Not impact guys yet, but in a program like UConn, that kind of depth keeps the floor high. The only real question? The freshmen. Jacob Furphy and Jalen Stewart might need some time, but I wouldn't be shocked if one of them pops. Bottom line, UConn is loaded. The ceiling hinges on how big a leap Reed takes and how quickly that rotation locks in. But this is a top 10 team all day. Sliding in at 11th nationally, it's St. John's. And yeah, they're getting a lot of preseason hype. Some folks are even tossing around number 1 overall, which, I gotta be honest, feels a little premature. Now, I'll give credit where it's due. Zuby Ejiofor is a beast. He's sitting 23rd nationally with a 5.1 rating. And this isn't just hype. That's real production. Last year, my preseason sleeper list had Ejiofor, Biddle, Saunders, Baker Mazzara, Dainja, Awaka, Clough. And look at the jumps those guys made. Honestly, I don't think it's that complicated. If a guy is only averaging 4 points per game but absolutely destroying in the 10 minutes he does play, believe in that guy. Not the guy by putting up empty minutes with trash per possession numbers. Eventually, the per possession monster is going to get minutes. And when they do, they usually scale without missing a beat. I called that one last year. Around Ejiofor, you've got Dylan Mitchell, Bryce Hopkins, and Ian Jackson, all inside the top 120 nationally. That's 92nd, 114th, and 115th, with ratings between 3.6 and 3.8. So yeah, there's talent. The big thing with Hopkins is health. If he's not at full strength, that takes a big bite out of their upside. But when you dig a little deeper, the depth starts to look Josen Sannon and Aaron Scott are both just inside the top 300, both with 2.8 ratings. Ozia Sellers is at 2.7, and then it falls off fast. Dylan Darling's at 2.1. Simeon Wilcher, who is a big name coming out of high school, just hasn't shown it yet. He's sitting at 1.9. So yeah, solid top half, but I'm not ready to crown them just yet. A few folks on the message boards are trying to talk themselves into this being the next super team. But let's pump the brakes. Good, definitely. Elite, I need to see more. Now let's talk Creighton, coming in 39th nationally with a 2.6 rating. That's a bit of a drop-off from what they've been recently. But I actually like the fit of this roster. It's basically Iowa East now. Josh Dix and Owen Freeman are both here, and they're going to have real opportunities. Let's start with Freeman. He's ranked 35th nationally with a 4.6 rating. Shot blocking has always been in his bag, and Creighton's drop coverage system, it's tailor-made for a guy like him. And here's the thing, Freeman wasn't the problem defensively last year. His defensive rating was 8 points per 100 possessions, better than anyone he played with. He wasn't getting help. He blocked 1.8 shots per game in limited minutes, and he did what he could. Same narrative people used against Terrace Reed at Michigan. Even Supreme Cook, and I say this gently, one of the worst high-major defensive centers I've seen was passable at Oregon. If he can be passable, Freeman's going to be fine, maybe even good, in a better system. This isn't just optimism either. Freeman's got the highest defensive rating on both teams he's played for, and the block rate backs it up. In short, he's not the issue. It's the context. Dix, meanwhile, is no slouch either, ranked 96th with a 3.7 rating, and you've got Jackson McAndrew at 224th with a 3.0. Jason Green's further down at 586th with a 2.0. So sure, not a flashy back end. Isaac Trout and Nick Graves sit in the 1.7 to 1.8 range. But if that top three stays healthy, this team's going to outperform that 39th ranking. Honestly, I think people are sleeping on Creighton. Just because the roster doesn't jump off the page doesn't mean it's not dangerous. You know what else didn't look flashy on paper? Most of Greg McDermott's best teams, Providence, they check in at 45th nationally with a 3.1 rating in the model. But I'll be honest, that number feels a little misleading. Because on paper, this team is loaded. They rank 31st in our talent-only metrics. So, yeah, no shortage of firepower here. Let's start with Jason Edwards. He's the headliner, ranked 30th nationally with a 4.7 rating. Last year, the guy put up 17 points per game in the SEC, and that was in just 25 minutes a night. He's the kind of scorer that could legitimately lead the nation this year. No exaggeration. Next up, Jalen Sellers. He's back after missing last season, but don't sleep. 2 years ago, he was dropping 16 a game in the Big 12. He enters the year ranked 120th nationally with a 3.6. And then there's Stefan Vax, sitting at 106th overall with a 3.7. He had some serious perimeter punch. And inside, they've got Oswin Erhun-Ones holding it down defensively, ranked 211th nationally with a 3.1 rating, a legit rim protector. Corey Floyd Jr. is also in the mix at 255 nationally with a 2.9. Ryan Mella clocks in at 4.64, and you've got bench depth with Rich Barron and Jameer Jones. This is a real team. So look, no more excuses for Kim English. He's got the dudes now. If he can't win with this group, then it might be time to stop giving him the benefit of the doubt. Next up, Marquette. They come in 51st nationally with a 2.4 rating. And look, I respect Shaka Smart. The guy clearly believes in his culture and development system, but the absolute refusal to use the transfer portal this offseason, that was just bizarre. Even Purdue, arguably the most continuity-obsessed team in the entire country, went and added Clough Shaka. He's out here acting like the portal doesn't even exist. And honestly, this isn't the year to be playing that game. There's no Tyler Kolek, no Oso Ighodaro, and I don't see a Cam Jones-style breakout coming either. The drop-off feels inevitable unless someone makes a massive leap. Chase Ross is probably their best bet. He's ranked 75th nationally with a 3.9 rating. The athleticism, the tools, it's there. Ben Gold's at 223 with a 3.0, solid but not a centerpiece. Let's talk about Royce Parham for a second. Look, he's got potential, but here's the reality. His true shooting percentage was .500. Compare that to Ross, who sat at .587. If Parham ends up leading this team in scoring, that probably means he's chucking inefficient volume, and if that's the case, this team is in trouble. Ross is the only returner who looks like he could carry the torch, and unless we see massive improvement from the supporting cast. And speaking of that cast, Sean Jones, Zadie, Lowry, and Parham, they're all rated between 1.8 and 2.2. Decent depth, but not game changers. Bottom line, unless someone wildly overperforms, this doesn't look like a top-tier Big East contender. Let's keep it rolling with Xavier. They check in at 67th nationally with a 2.1 rating. New coach, new direction, and I'll say this, hiring Richard Pitino, not the worst move out there. And he did a perfectly respectable job at Minnesota, then turned around and won at New Mexico. He's not a fraud, not a slam dunk either, but definitely not a disaster. That said, not at least giving Chris Mack a call? Yeah, that still feels like a miss. The reality is this roster's in a weird spot. Boy, Trey Carroll is probably the top guy here, ranked 200th nationally with a 3.1 rating. After that, it's pretty murky. Allwright and Dante Maddox check in at 523 and 583, both right around that 2.0 range. Then you've got a bunch of guys in the 1.6 to 1.9 tier, Filip Borvikanen, Isaiah Walker, Pape Ndiaye, Gabriel Pozzato, Malik Moore. Now, to be fair, Pozzato and Moore might be a little better than they're getting credit for. Pozzato's ranked 268th, and while he's not a star, he does fit decently next to Carroll. If he can knock down a few more threes, it's a workable combo. Malik Moore, the Montana transfer. He's a little lower than Pozzato in the model, but the shooting is real. Could definitely be a useful role guy who stretches the floor and hits open shots. Just don't expect much else. So, look, the pieces might fit together in a better than the sum of its parts kind of way, but this doesn't feel like a group that's ready to break through just yet. The Musketeers will probably be fine eventually, but this isn't the year they take a major step forward. All right, let's kick things off at the bottom of the Big East, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's bleak, coming in at 69th nationally, which is sadly the best in this stretch. We've got Georgetown. The Hoyas hold a 2.4 rating, but there's just not much here to get fired up about. Their top guy, KJ Lewis, he's ranked 85th nationally with a 3.9 rating, and to be fair, he's a nice piece. Tough, versatile defender. He'll bring the energy, but if he's your best player, you probably have some issues. Langston Love is also here. He comes in at 278 nationally with a 2.8 rating. After that, though, it falls off quick. Jeremiah Williams, ranked 346 with a 2.6. Malik Mack, 432nd at 2.3. Duncan Powell, Mike, also at 434 with a 2.3. You're just not replacing what they lost in Sorber, and there's no obvious solution in the front court. That post depth is flat out concerning. They'll have some guard play, sure, but it's hard to see how this group survives inside. And without that, it's going to be a long year on both ends. Villanova sitting 71st nationally with a 2.1 rating. And man, it's honestly wild how far this program has fallen. This roster doesn't exactly scream vintage Villanova. You've got Akadin Lewis ranked 294 nationally with a 2.8 rating. Tyler Perkins comes in at 343, rating out at 2.6. And somehow, still in college, Devin Askew checks in at 461 with a 2.2. Behind him is Zion Stanford at 533 and Bryce Lindsey way down at 760. If this is the core of your rotation, you're not even living in the good version of Neptune's teams. At this point, Nova fans probably need to get louder about wanting a change. Honestly, I'd take Kevin Willard over Neptune every day of the week. Willard's been a Power 5 head coach for 15 years, and he's posted 5 top 50 seasons in that span. He might not be a ceiling raiser, but the man's got a floor. And Villanova, right now, they're falling through it. Sliding down just a few spots is Butler checks in at 77th nationally, also carrying a 2.1 team rating. And this one's tough for me personally because I really wanted Thad Matta's return to work out. But let's be real. Rebuilding Butler in today's Big East is a totally different animal than what he dealt with back in 2001 coaching in the Midwestern Collegiate Conference. And what's even more telling, they made a bad hire, quickly pivoted to Holtman, then got Matta back. And somehow they're still irrelevant. Even with decent coaches, sometimes the rot runs too deep. Butler hasn't cracked the top 60 in 3 years, and let's be honest, year 4 doesn't look like a breakthrough either. The top talent, Finley Bizjack, 190 nationally, 3.2 rating. Michael Ajayi is next at 305 with a 2.7, and Johan Traore, Johan Traore is now ranked 494 with a 2.2. After that, you've got Jalen Jackson sitting all the way down at 652. That's just not enough to move the needle. They might defend, they might compete, but there's no real juice here. And finally, DePaul, coming in at 82nd nationally with a 2.3 rating. And I got to say, year 1 for Chris Holtman, that's a huge success in context. Going from 300 plus in the rankings last year to 122 by season's end was one of the biggest jumps in the country. And now they bring back some real continuity, and they've made a few smart adds. Caleb Banks is one of them. He ranked 564 with a 2.0. But I think he's better than that. The model might have sold him short, maybe because the AAC was a bit down last year, but Banks is a guy who passes the eye test. The real value here, though, is in the top 2. NJ Benson, ranked 139 with a 3.5 rating, and CJ Gunn, 186 nationally, sitting at 3.2. They also added Layden Blocker, another playable piece in the backcourt, ranked 311 with a 2.7. All of a sudden, this is a DePaul roster that actually looks competent, and let's be honest, that's not a sentence we've said in years. And then last and definitely least, we've got Seton Hall. They come in at 120th nationally with a 1.7 team rating. And I'll just say it. This roster is rough. Like Radford with a brand new coach is probably better than this group. That's a problem. Even with limited NIL money, there were better players out there. You've got to get creative. You've got to dig. This question mark, this is the worst roster in the Power 5. Elijah Fisher is supposed to be your best piece, and he's ranked 447 nationally with a 2.3 rating. That's your guy. Right behind him, it's Staten McCray out of Miami, Ohio, coming in at 501 with a 2.2. And if those are your top 2, man, you're not even close. After that, it gets bleak. We're talking deep into the 800s. Stephon Payne, ranked 814. Adam Clark, 837. TJ Simpkins, 844. All rating somewhere in the 1.6 to 1.7 range. Look, I get it. Shaheen Holloway might be strapped for cash compared to the rest of the Big East, but at some point, you've got to recruit better than this. This is a brutal league. And if you're fielding a roster like this in year 3, it might be time to reassess the direction. That's it for this episode. Be sure to check out the resourcenexus.com for the full rankings, and stay tuned as we break down more conferences coming up. All right, that's a wrap for today. Thanks for tuning in. Hope you got some good insights. If you enjoyed the episode, be sure to like, subscribe, and share it with anyone who'd find it useful. And don't forget to check out the resourcenexus.com for more in-depth analysis. Until next time, check you later.
Cool. Guess we'll see you around.
All right, check you later.
Bye. dork, man. What are you talking about? Check you later.